In our effort to highlight Black community leadership, the Dominique Hoskins Black History Museum and Learning Center is pleased to share this oral history interview recorded in July 2025 featuring Ernest Badger, who grew up in Hinesville, Georgia, and was the child of sharecroppers. In this interview, we discuss segregation, living through civil rights, and Mr. Badger's life story more generally.
On behalf of the Dominique Hoskins Black History Museum and Learning Center, we want to welcome you to this event of history. So you guys are in for a great treat. And so again, thank you so very much for coming and helping us share history made here at the Dominique Hoskins Black History Museum and Learning Center.
Thank you everybody for coming today. We are very excited because we're going to get to hear from Mr. Ernest Robert Badger. Mr. Badger was born in Hinesville, Georgia in Liberty County in a farmhouse in 1940, and he is about to turn 85 years old on August 26th, and he's here to share his story growing up and just some of his life experiences. This is an oral history interview, so this is a historical methodology where people come and share their stories, and we really focus on preserving them, so these will live in the museum's collections. Mr. Badger's the first interview that we're doing with a live audience, but we've done many interviews with different community members that will become part of the museum collection as well. And so a big part of this is just really listening to the stories and really actively listening, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions at the end as well. Can you share a little bit about your childhood?
My name is Ernest Robert Badger. I was born in Georgia, Hinesville, Georgia. We was in the country. I was born in Liberty County in a rural area. And when I say rural area, I mean way, way in the country. We was about 30 miles from Hinesville, maybe longer. My mother and father had 16 of us, had 16 siblings. My father was a sharecropper. Sharecropper was what happened after slavery. The slaves were supposed to have been free. And then some of them became sharecroppers, and some of them just remained working on the plantation because after they became free, they didn't have nowhere to go. So they just stayed there on the farm. And some become sharecroppers. Some people supposed to hadn't got 40 acres in a mule. They never got that. Maybe a few of them got up. And I have to say this, you want the true story. The ones that actually got the 40 acres of the mule, they was relatives of the slave owners, if y'all understand what I mean. And my father and my grandfather, they became sharecroppers because they went out on their own, they stood up. The ones that didn't become sharecroppers, they didn't stand up for their rights. But my father was the type of man and my grandfather was the type of person. They stood up, they would fight back. And in Georgia, I just wasn't raised in just one county. We moved a lot. My father moved us around a lot, from county to county all over Georgia, from one plantation to the next one, due to the fact because he stood up for his rights. He didn't stay at a place where he wasn't treated right. He would move to another place. We was, in the 1950s, I was 10 years old, and we moved to an area. It was a long, long ways from anything. 5 years ago, when I became 80 years old, I got a chance to go back to visit the places that I was raised in. I had always wanted to go back, and I asked God to bless me to go back. And when I turned 80 years old, that blessing came true. And I went back there. I went to this place where we was living so far on the farm. I'm a mailbox at least 5 miles from where we lived, because where we lived, a car couldn't come down that road. It's just a little pathway. So we had to walk 9 miles to school, and it would be so cold in the morning when we were walking. When we got to school, our hands would be frozen. The teacher had to take water and palm her fingers out. It would be ice on the ground. And I didn't get much schooling because we worked on the farm all the time. Anyway, I got a chance to go back to that place. And The house wasn't there, and a lot of things wasn't there, but I could tell where I was at, and tell where the house and the barn where we had the animals at. I could tell the spot because I could feel it. When I would get to the area where the house was supposed to be, in the area where they had the barn, I could feel it. I'll say about a block and a half from where the house was sitting. The train used to come along there, and it would run under a trestle kind of thing. And as kids, we would hear that train coming, and we would run down there to meet that train. Because that was the only thing that we saw. We were so far back there, and we would wave at that train, and wave at the people on the train. And we would turn to one another, and we would say to one another, one day we are going to catch this train and ride it. So we was on this bridge, and this car came up while my nephew was taking pictures of me on the bridge. And the car stopped and waited for us to take the picture. And then after the car drove up where I was at, and the lady, it was two ladies in the car. He rolled the one down, and I told him why I was there on the bridge. I told him I was there in 1950 when I was 10 years old. I told him what we used to do at come to the bridge. And she told me, she looked at me, and she said, Jesus Christ, you was able to return back here after 70 years. I broke down and went to cry because I didn't realize it had been that long. I broke down and went to cry, but she said, God bless you to get back, to return back here after 70 years.
Can you talk about work and education from your childhood?
We used to work so hard in the fields and things like that, you know. We would start to work at daylight. We would work until we couldn't see. And at 12 and 13 years old, I used to pick 400 and 500 pounds of cotton a day. I was a hard worker. I was taught to work hard. That's the way my parents raised us. When I look at what's going on today, and I think about my parents and how they raised us, they was not educated people. But then when I look back on them and think and look at what's happening today, oh Lord have mercy. What they told us and what they had to go on was just the will of God. That's the only thing they had to go on. They didn't have nothing else to back them up.
Can you talk a little bit about your career in California?
Got a job working for the state, University of California, UC. That's where I retired from. And I was blessed to get that job. Again, going back to my work ethic. This catering place I was working at, we used to serve California region every year, placed to the university there, the extension where they were serving at. So he saw me working when I was working for the catering outfit. So I was helping them serve, and then I got to serving. I would clean up all the dishes, bust all the dishes and stuff like that, and get them ready to take back to the restaurant. So anyway, he saw me, and he said to me, Jesus Christ, man. He said, you're the workingest person I ever seen. He had been watching me work, and he asked me, he said, how would you like to come to work for the university where you can get good benefits? See, you know what I'm saying? And I told him, yes, that's how I got to the university. And that's why I'm retired from the state. What my parents put into me, the work, not of the education, because I had very little education.
Can you talk about your experiences with segregation in Georgia?
Going back to Georgia, very racist. There was places that we just couldn't go. And as you get caught in the wrong place, at that time coming up back there, we knew what to do, how to live, and what not to do. Because of the things you just couldn't do. You couldn't go in like this building here. I couldn't come in this building. It was something that a black person had to get out of this building. They had to go to the back of the building. You couldn't come up to the front of the building.
Can you talk about the circumstances of your birth?
I was the ninth one of 16. I was born in the farmhouse, and I was born by a midwife. Back on then, in the 40s, there was no doctors for black folks. My mother and my father and my grandfather, uncles, they was our doctors. We got sick, but you couldn't go to no doctor. They was our doctor. They could go out in the woods and they could get things and bring it back. Whatever was wrong with you, they know how to go get stuff and put it together to heal you. Because that was the only thing we had. The goodness in the grace of God.
Can you talk about your religious journey, particularly after retirement?
My goal after I retired was to go back to Georgia, but I made a bad choice. I had invested, I bought a home here, and when I was married, we bought a home, but we got a divorce. I started working real hard. I started working 90 a day because my goal was to go back to Georgia after my divorce, but I made a bad choice. I got on drugs. Drugs took me down. I was on drugs for 10 years. After the divorce, I bought a property here in Oakland. And I also bought 2 properties in Georgia. And one of the properties I bought in Georgia was a commercial building. One of the buildings I couldn't go into when I was a kid. I made a bad choice. I started dealing drugs first, then I become my own best customer. I lost everything. I smoked it up. I have to say that. I lost all of that behind drugs. And not only did I lose all of that, I lost the connection in the love for my family, lost my dignity. I lost everything on that crack cocaine and almost lost my life. In 1999, one day I was walking down the street full of drugs, pocket full of drugs, and I was full of drugs. And this car came up on me, rode right up to me, and shot me. And I fell, and when I fell right across the doorway of a church that I had been walking by for many days. Even though when I would walk by that church, I would be full of it. But even though I would say to myself in my mind, I would hear them having church, it was a holiness church, and I would say in my mind, in my feeling, that I was going to go in there one day, I was going to attend that church, because that's the way I felt when I walked by there. But the drugs, they didn't let me just go in there right then. So anyway, I was walking by that day, and this car came up and shot me, and I fell across the door of that church. There was a young lady just had drove up, and she saw this car drove up behind me and shot me. She saw what happened. She locked her kids up in the car. She had 2 little kids, and she come running to me. From the time she got from one side of the street to the other, I had passed over. And when she got to me, as soon as her hand touched me, my life came back just like that, just like you turn that light switch on. It came right back. Now people ask me, what happened when I passed over? I don't know, because I was dead. I didn't see that, and what did I see, or what, I didn't see nothing because I was dead. But I know that I was somewhere. I had to be somewhere, because when I came back and I opened my eyes and I saw the lights, I did not want to be back here. I was somewhere, and wherever that was, I was all right. I was content. That's how I didn't want to be back. So anyway, they took me to the Highland Hospital, and my brothers and sisters and my daughter, they found out where I was at in the hospital. They had been looking for me. They found me in the hospital. I could hear what was going on around me, but I couldn't respond to what was happening around me. I couldn't respond to it, but I could hear them very well. I could hear the doctors telling me, say, we have did all we can do for him. We don't know if he's going to make it or not. I could hear that very plain. And they said, well, we know that he will never walk again, because when the bullets hit me, they shot me twice right through my pelvis. And this side, it kind of paralyzed me. They said, we know he never will be able to walk again. I could hear this. But I could also hear this young lady that came to me. I could hear her prayer, because when she came to me and put her hands on me, she went to praying for me. I could hear the doctor saying that I wasn't going to make it, but I could also hear her prayer when she told me that I was going to make it. That's what her prayer was, that I was going to make it. And I was saying to myself, I couldn't say that to them. I was saying to myself, I'm going to get up from here. Sure enough, my bed was right by a window. And one morning, I was praying, talking to God. In my mind, my voice came out to a meditation prayer. My voice came out. I started talking. That morning when the doctors came in, I said good morning to them. Oh, they couldn't believe what they seen. Then they called my daughter and my brothers and sisters to the hospital. They came. Now I can talk, I can respond to them. And the doctor was telling me, well, we know that he will not walk again. I looked straight at the doctor and I told him, we're getting up from here. I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to walk. I knew I was going to walk because of what that lady told me. 2 days later, I moved my feet one morning, that one moved. I moved the other, that one moved. This time, when they came and I was sitting on the side of the bed, I done got up from there because I knew I was going to get up from there. Because I know what she told me, and she put something in me to make me know I was going to get up from there. So anyway, I got out of the hospital, had to learn how to really handle myself, rehabilitate myself, and I did. I rehabilitated myself, walking up and down the street, going back around that corner where I got shot at, but nobody wanted to mess with me. When they see me coming, they didn't want to mess with me too much. They didn't want to get involved in that. But anyway, when the court date started, it took 1 year and 6 months for them to get all the things together. And I went to court that morning, and I got there early. I was sitting there, my court date was at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was sitting there till about 1 o'clock. They had to call me. I went to the clerk and she said, well, we called you this morning and found out you had left home. We left a message to tell you that one of the noise on one side didn't show up. She said, just a minute, she said, I'm going to tell the DA he's out here and maybe he want to talk to you. Sure enough, I went into his office and talked to him. And he was asking me who the person came to me when I was laying on the ground there. I didn't know who she was. I had never met her before. But she was the person that was going with you, that belonged to that church there where I filmed. So I told him I don't know who she was. I never met her before. He said, yeah, he said, it was a black lady came to you. I said, no. I said, I don't think she was the black lady came to me. I said, it was a Spanish lady came that I saw. Because what happened was, when she started praying to me, she started praying in tongues, something that I didn't know nothing about. I thought she was Spanish. See what I'm saying? So anyway, he told me that she belonged to that church and things like that. So I got right up from, I didn't see anything else to him. I got right up from the desk because I know I was going to find her that Sunday morning and find out that, you know. So that Sunday morning, sure enough, I got everything together and I went to church time. I walked in the church and the usher, I went to the usher because I had a lot of gifts and things in my heart. And I told the usher, I'm the person that got shot here 1.5 years ago. And when I said that, the whole church stopped. Everybody, the whole preacher, everybody stopped. Preacher came out the pulpit and he came up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, mister, you are a ghost standing here this morning. He said, because when the paramedics picked you up from front of that door, you had passed back over. That's what he told me. He said, when they picked you up, you had passed over again. Yeah, you know, and everybody in the church come around me, they're shouting and singing and crying and going. And they told me, she said, the person that came to you, she on her route to church. Now she's not here. She was the secretary of the church. Sure enough, I'm sitting middle way to church with my back to the door.
Can you share what you remember about the civil rights movement?
Well, the civil rights movement, I was not in the march, so to say, but I do remember all of that. And Emmett Till, yes, Jesus Christ, God have mercy. Oh, Jesus. Yes, I remember that just like it was today. Because the day that they killed Emmett Till, it kind of shook up everything around the area where I was living and stuff like that, you know. It was a bad situation the day that they killed him. I remember I had an uncle that got, I don't know exactly just what happened, but I do know that they burned his house down, tried to burn his family up. I do know that. I remember things like that back in the civil rights movements and things like that, you know. John Lewis and all those people, when they got beat up on the bridge and stuff like that, were crossing over to Montgomery, from Selma to Montgomery. As a matter of fact, we went through something there. Yes, and Jesus Christ, sure did bring that. Yeah, we made her when we got married back in the 60s. We went through something because what happened was, when we got married, a bus trip around the country. You could get a bus trip around the country for $99. And I never will forget, when we got to Alabama, at Selma, Alabama, they held us up there all night and things like that because we couldn't cross because of what was happening on the bridge. I never was in the marching and things like that, but I do remember the prejudices and things. And then again, I'll tell you something. After you saying that the civil rights thing, not only that I felt that in Georgia, I felt it right here in California. Went through it right here in California. Right here at UC, right in the workplace. There was a lot of racists in the workplace. And 71, or maybe 69, 71, we were working on the campus at UC Parnassus. We could work on the first floor, on the floors and lobbies and stuff like that. But as soon as you get to working, you couldn't stay there. You had to go back down in the basement. In 1972, there was an organization at UC. It was called the Black Caucus. And the black students had problems passing their board exams. So the Black Caucus went to the dean's office and got the records. They found out the black students, some of them had better records than the white students. Anyway, because they asked us, we boycotted UC. We put our jobs on the line for them to be able to graduate. That was in 1971, 72, or 1999, or something like that, 1969. We put our jobs on the line for the black students to be able to graduate. So prejudice, yes, I felt that racist. And Jesus Christ, I felt that here. I left Georgia, I thought I had left it, but it was here. And we put our jobs on the line for the students to graduate and also better working conditions and things like that for the workers and stuff like that.
Why do you feel that it's important for young people to hear your story? Why did you want to share your testimony?
Well, yes, I think it's very important for me to share my story. And I think it's very, very, very important for people to share their story and their experiences. I wish this whole place could be filled with the younger generation to hear it. I wish more people would tell their stories and get the house full of young folks to listen and to get to know. Because I'm telling you something, I talk to a lot of young folks now, even including my grandsons and also my daughters. I talk to them about history and they just don't know, like I said, about what my parents did. They would sit us down and talk to us. And there wasn't no such a thing as, I don't want to hear that. You had to hear it. You better not get up. Try to get up and think about it. Even think about it in your mind. You try to sit these young folks down here and talk about it. Well, they don't want to hear it. They got something to do. They ain't got time for it. I do wish that people would share their testimony